Welcome to the Smug Film Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Clark. With me today is John D'Amico.
Hi.
And Jenna Ipcar.
Hey.
Hey. Today we're going to talk to John D'Amico about his new film, Green Brothers, that he just finished shooting. Insert applause.
Woo!
Yeah. I'll put that in post. We'll have lots of rip-roaring applause for John D'Amico. So we're going to find out all about that, and then we'll do, the old mailbag, answer some questions later on. But first, right off the bat, what can you tell us about the film?
Well, I've been working on this one for a while. The script's been kicking around for a couple of years, and finally I had the things lined up and I had the opportunity to do it. So we started shooting late September, and went through right up to about the end of October. It's a crime thriller type of deal, mostly shot up in the Bronx with interiors just sort of scattered around the city. But it's about these two brothers, the Green brothers, Lee and William Green, who have been estranged since they were teenagers because they didn't get along when they were kids, and William got sent to live with his grandfather. And 10 years later, the time the story takes place, their parents die. So they reunite in the city for the first time in like a decade. And Lee learns that William is falling into kind of a bad criminal enterprise. Pretty much the gist of it.
So you shot in the Bronx. You kind of scoped it out for a while. You were like finding really interesting spots.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live up there, and one of the producers lived up there in Queens pretty much his whole life. So, and actually the DP and one of the other producers and a handful of us were kind of in and out of there either through school or just, life. So we all sort of knew the area. Mostly we shot around the Arthur Avenue area because it's just so interesting looking up there, and nobody's shooting there. And the thing about the Bronx, a big part of the reason I wanted to shoot there, aside from the fact that it was the best place for the story and it was where I knew, is that it has the most Art Deco buildings of any city, I think, in the world.
Damn.
Yeah.
Because it came of age in the 30s, and then nobody ever built anything there after the 30s.
Yeah, it was fancy. It was like a real upscale neighborhood for a while there, and then it promptly crashed and burned.
Well, what happened was, the Grand Concourse was just a stretch of really beautiful places. It wasn't really fancy. It was working class always, but it was like nice working class until they started cutting it up with the stupid highways and everything. And that tore apart a lot of the neighborhoods. And when crack started to go into it, and when the city started to crumble, the Bronx really got the worst of it just because of where it is. So it has this reputation now for what it was like in, say, 1978, when it was literally on fire because the landlords were burning the buildings to get the insurance claims. But it's not like that anymore. It's a place now that went through this absolute crucible, and nobody helped it. And all of the improvement, which there's been a lot of it, all of the improvement has come internally. In the Bronx. Wow. It's been none of the mayors have cared about it, and there's no attention to it in any way except in a negative capacity, which is weird to me because when you look at it on paper, it should be doing the best of everywhere in the city. It's the one connected to the mainland. It has Yankee Stadium. It has an incredible amount of parkland. It has by far the best buildings except for Manhattan, but just nobody cared about it. So everything that's happened in there has happened in this weird little island in New York, which is just a big draw to me. I find that just such an interesting...
Yeah, it's cinematic. It's one of those instantly film feeling kind of vibes.
And it's definitely, it's so New York. I noticed on your Facebook page for this movie, you had a quote from Gil Scott-Heron.
Yeah.
And I think he grew up in the Bronx, right? And he moved there as a teenager.
I think he was Harlem.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe.
But he, as a person, to me, still represents New York. You know, as you were saying, it's funny how the '70s still really represents New York, and I think because there were so many movies at the time that
Yeah.
were wonderful classic films that took place in New York in the '70s, and his like Gil Scott Heron, just his music reminds me. Like I can't listen to The Bottle without picturing his music video for that, which was just like shot to New York.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah, it's Washington Heights kind of has the same thing where Washington Heights isn't really what it was, but any of those uptown places, people just remember them from, the late 70s into the early 80s, this sort of invention of hip hop era when I guess it was the only time they had any attention on them. But I mean, it's such an interesting world uptown because it's really, in theory, you can get anywhere, but in practice, you're on your own up there.
And it's so overlooked. I was trying to think of movies that even took place in the Bronx, and I guess there are a couple. The one I could think of the most readily was Gloria by Cassavetes.
Yeah, it's a good
beautiful movie.
Which is a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
And definitely, I think also showcases the Bronx for sort of how it feels and looks, and really uses that. But
I, for years, even before this project, was trying to track down all the stuff I could that was shot up there just because, like you said, there's just not a lot of it. So there's Marty, the Chayefsky teleplay. Was that's set in the Bronx, which is interesting because Chayefsky was from the Bronx, and he was part of this wave of like Jewish immigrant geniuses that all came out of the Bronx, probably 20s to the 40s. They came of age in the 40s ish, and it was him and Kubrick and the guy who wrote the Shakespeare books, Shakespeare and the Invention of the Human, Harold Bloom. All those guys, they're all Bronx born and Bronx raised, but they're not. I think when you hit a certain level of talent, you're no longer associated with it. It's this weird, like, reverse Gil Scott Heron thing. For some reason, everybody thinks Kubrick's from England. He's not from England. He was born in the Bronx, and most of his early and great stuff was filmed in New York live. So yeah, the Chayefsky one, Marty, is a good Bronx one. There's a movie called The Wanderers from '79 with Stallone and Henry Winkler, and it's actually, I think it's how Henry Winkler got cast as the Fonz, because he's pretty much playing the same guy.
It's kind of like a sister film to Lords of Flatbush, right?
Yeah, they're similar. I might even be mixing them up, but The Wanderers is it's Lords of Flatbush is Brooklyn, and The Wanderers it's Arthur Avenue. It's the Belmont area in the 50s, in the time of like Dion and the Belmonts, and it's kind of interesting because it's actually surprisingly accurate. Like there's this part where there's a street gang, the Fordham Baldies, who all had shaved heads, and they're roaming around and they all get drunk and they go to a little army recruiting place and all enlist and all get sent to Vietnam. And it's just this like 2-minute thing in the movie, but apparently that actually happened. That was the recruiting post on Grand Concourse in Fordham. That was like a real thing. They just all got drunk one night and wound up in Vietnam, at least from the stories I've heard. So there's some stuff, and it all has this sort of like oral tradition of, people who know it well. Like Bronx Tale is another one that really came out of the Bronx and then came back into the Bronx. That everybody responsible for that knew that area very well.
Because beautiful movie.
Yeah, that one's really accurate visually too.
Yeah,
as well.
The shots when he's driving the bus are just ridiculous. I mean, the cinematography in that movie is incredible.
Yeah, that's a wonderful movie all around. People forget about that one a little bit. I think because it was like right around the time of Goodfellas.
Yeah,
it's such a good movie.
Yeah, I mean it's not Goodfellas level, but it's like it's a hair away. I mean, it's incredible.
It's close. Yeah. And then Naked City, which is a show from the 60s that I'm always telling people to watch for so many reasons. Naked City did a handful of episodes that they shot up there, and those are real interesting because you can see the transition. Because around that was the early 60s, so around that time was sort of the end of the golden age of the Bronx, where it was sort of like a nice working class neighborhood, and the beginning of its decline. So you can see like the cracks begin to show in the structure of those communities.
I remember I sat in on a little session you were having, just going over like the visual style that you were looking for with the film. You're just playing like little clips and everything. I remember you looked at Killer's Kiss, which is just gorgeous movie.
Oh yeah, Killer's Kiss is stunning. Killer's Kiss. When I watched it for about a half a minute, I wanted to make Green Brothers in black and white just because of Killer's Kiss.
Yeah.
We didn't, but it's one of those movies that has that kind of impact that you just want to do.
Well, I just remember we were going through like all sorts of clips from a whole mess of movies that night. It was you and it was the DP and one of the producers, a couple other guys. And you were just, communicating what kind of vibes you wanted. And right when like Killer's Kiss went on, we'd watched a bunch of stuff and we were just watching it casually. Like everybody was just glued to it. Even when we were watching scenes out of context with like what had happened before, we were just like, it's told visually so well that you can just jump in at any point with that movie, and it grabs you.
That movie's a masterpiece. That's a cool one too, because it's a side of Kubrick that you don't really get to see, which is this sort of run and gun side. He's such in his major works. He's such a precise filmmaker that you forget how good he could be when it was just him. If you see the behind the scenes pictures of Killer's Kiss, it's literally him with a little 16 millimeter camera just holding it himself. And he's standing, like on ledges, on bedposts, just trying to get the angle. And, they're shooting off windowsills on roofs. And there's all this just sort of like really active, really location specific photography in that movie that it almost makes you wish Kubrick had stayed in the minor leagues for a little longer, because it's such a
I could use like
film.
5 of those.
Yeah. Yeah. 5 of those and like 5 of The Killings.
Mm-hmm. Well, Killing's my favorite of his. That's the one that like, I don't know, I love so many of his films, but there's a grueling aspect to so many of them where it's like, if you're going to sit down with it, you really have to like sit down with it. But like The Killing, if somebody mentioned The Killing right now, I'd be like, yeah, let's watch The Killing any time of day. Like that's just one that I would always be excited for.
Yeah, I would say the same with Killer's Kiss.
Yeah.
Killer's
those
Kiss,
two, they do go hand in hand. And it's good that, it sucks that Killer's Kiss doesn't have its own Criterion release, because it
it's an extra feature on the Killing DVD.
Yeah, just a little bonus feature, which of all the bonus features in the world, it's probably the greatest bonus feature of all time, to get a beautiful full film as your bonus feature. But, it'd be great to have its own due,
Yeah, that was a big one for us. And also not just Naked City, the TV show, but Naked City, the photography book by Ouija. That was a big one. Just those because it has that same sort of atmosphere as Killer's Kiss, where you feel like somebody just picked up a camera at 3 a.m. and went out and found something to photograph.
Right.
And even if that's not what these things really are, that feeling that they are is so striking.
What were your hours shooting? Were you shooting pretty early at any point, or what were your kind of like golden times of shooting?
We did a lot of night stuff. It was a lot of the earliest ones, to be honest, were the interiors, just because we had to get to our locations real early. Mm-hmm. So it's if you had to sort of look at it as a time of day, I would say a good chunk of this movie takes place at night, and at that sort of just like twilight kind of hour.
And so you're done shooting everything now?
Principal's done.
Yeah.
We're doing a little bit of B-roll, a little bit of odds and ends, getting specific close-ups.
Have you started cutting stuff together?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm cutting it myself, at least the first pass of it.
Yeah.
And it should be another maybe 2 weeks until I have a temp cut.
So this is your first feature film, right?
No.
Oh, really?
This is my second. This is my first one that I have a crew on.
Ah.
I did one in 2011 that I also did it up in the Bronx, actually. That one was, it was called The Calm. That was pretty much just me with a camera. That was a lot of waking up at 5 a.m. Because I wanted to do like a feature-length Twilight Zone, so the whole premise is 3 people wake up and New York City is deserted, and they don't know why. And it just sort of studies what happens. And the thing about the Bronx is there's all these really big streets that are kind of empty a lot of the time. So if you just get there at the right hour of the morning, it really looks kind of like the end of the world. So that one, I did that. I think I finished that one around maybe the end of 2011. And I had I put in a lot of music for that one that I couldn't afford to buy and couldn't see the movie without. So I ended up not really doing much with that, just sort of doing private showings of it.
Yeah, so it's like a stalemate with the music, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just smaller in scope than this one. This one's a lot bigger than anything I've done before. It's a big cast, it's a big production. There's a lot of things.
So where'd you find let's say your actors? Let's tackle that first.
Backstage. Just posted a listing on Backstage, and we ran 2 days of audition at Champion Studios in Midtown, and a lot of people came. It was great. We got our first choice for every single role. So
Nice.
It's a wonderful cast.
Yeah,
The cast
that's a dream.
yeah, I mean, they're unreal. It ended up becoming, which it wasn't intended to be, a lot of improvised stuff, because I would just sort of put the camera down, and then at the end of the scene I wouldn't call cut sometimes. I just wanted to see what happened, because they were all so good that they had so much life in them that, scenes would start happening that weren't even in the script. They just lived it. Yeah, they were fantastic.
And they were good to go, basically, it seems like, because you started not too long after that.
Yeah.
That always sucks when like you find somebody and then it's like, all right, well, maybe in a year if we have the money or this, that, and the other. But you just went right into it pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know any other way to do it than that. Anytime I've tried to do a project where it's sort of, you build a little bit over the course of months and months and months. I mean, I know people who do that successfully, but anytime I've tried to do that, it's just fallen through for me. So when I saw the sort of opening in my life where I could do it, I kind of just ran for broke, and it actually turned out really well. Everything kind of fell into place.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a very lucky production. I was surprised.
So there were no unforeseen issues or anything. I was wondering, like, what was the difference? You said before it was you and a camera and 3 people, and now you had a whole crew. Did you run into anything difficult, or you thought it was actually like pretty great?
We had some trouble with some of the locations. Some of the deals would fall through, or you'd get to the location and the sound was a problem. We had a lot of problems with planes, which I think is just a problem if you're shooting in New York.
Yeah.
You're just always going to have planes overhead. But other than that, those end up being producer problems. Those are office problems. As far as on set, like director problems, no, everybody was a goddamn dream. It's a lot easier, I realized, to do it with a bunch of people, which makes sense, but you kind of have to learn that the hard way. It's just, you can sit back and watch it a little more, and you can have more of like a God's eye view of what's in the scene. Because the trouble with doing it by yourself, I think everybody should make a movie. Anybody who wants to be a director should make a movie that they shoot themselves, and it plan to never release it, but just make it to do it, because you'll realize the limitations of craning your eye through the lens to try to get everything. And it's sort of nice to be able to just, like see the room while you're shooting.
So where did you find your crew? How'd you assemble that?
Some of them I knew. Most of them I knew. Some of them were referrals from friends. And the sound man was Backstage. Or no, that was a Mandy posting. And I think makeup was a Mandy posting as well. It's, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems shooting in New York, but the one thing that's really a dream is it's very easy to find talented people.
Yeah, it's like
you have to do the bare minimum of legwork to get
yeah.
them.
And it's a weird thing too, because it's like everybody's off doing their own thing, but then you just kind of grab into another pool and you can find the people that you need for your projects. It doesn't take much to just kind of grab from another pool.
I remember us talking about that almost a year ago.
Yeah.
The thing about New York filmmaking is when you look at it historically, it feels like, there were these huge networks and, like everybody in the 80s knew everybody in the 80s and they all lived next to each other and they all made films together and it was like a big thing. And I get frustrated because I feel like that's not still viable. It does feel like what you're saying, that there's a lot of talent, but it's in, individual orbits and it's very fragmented. But I wonder if maybe that's just how it always was.
It could be, yeah.
I would love to just sit down with like a Hal Hartley or even like Steve Buscemi and just like figure out what that looked like back in, say, the 80s.
Yeah.
Or even, like the Circle in the Square days. Like how much did all those guys who were doing theater together in the 60s, did they really know each other that well, like Hoffman and James Earl Jones and all them.
Mm.
It's a weird tradition, but it feels like it's at the very least moved off of Manhattan now. You don't find filmmakers in Manhattan now. You got to go to Brooklyn or Queens to get them. So maybe that's part of that just diaspora of talent.
Because the rent's too damn high.
Yeah, it is. And it's like a silly thing to say, but it's also a huge problem for the arts because you can no longer have like a community where a lot of artists live.
Yeah.
It'll happen and then it'll turn to shit. Like it happened to the Village, the Lower East Side, and then they all became real estate millionaires and it fell apart. And then it happened to Williamsburg again.
Yeah, I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, Bushwick is the new art neighborhood," but the truth is, I can't think of anything that's come out of Bushwick.
Yeah,
Short of bars,
Yeah, I don't fall into that that lie of enough people doing one thing in an area makes it a thing. Like I think that's what's happening with Bushwick is like a lot of people are doing stuff, but what are they really doing? They're doing stuff in like lofts, like throwing little shows like that, but is that really a movement? Is that really something big? Like are they all saying enough of a thing that it's a thing unto itself?
I hope it's at least the beginning of one. My friend made a very good movie. He shot in Bushwick.
Yeah, that's a great example of it actually coming into something. Yeah.
Yeah, Rover that I did a review for the site. He was living in an abandoned church at the time, so he shot a movie in the church right before the city had it demolished. It's a beautiful little movie. It really was. I was very impressed with that. But I don't know. It feels like it's not quite as cohesive a group as it should be, New York filmmaking.
It's one of those things where like once you start being on the internet and making friends on the internet, you start finding like people all over the world that think pretty similarly to you on like these very certain things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to find in your own area. So there's like that great addictive aspect of like us finding, smug film people in England or wherever in Canada that we love hooking up with and having write and talk to about movies and everything. And then when you go back to the reality of, let's say, your community, or if you're in New York City, that's a huge thing. But let's say you're in some small town, then you're back to just wherever your friends are at with what they're doing. And it doesn't have as much allure as talking to people that are right on your level.
So you think there's no incentive to have sort of a local network now that you can have a global one? That's kind of interesting. I hope that's not true, but it might be.
I think it's that the global aspect speeds it up because you find the people that you don't have to then bring to your level with what you're thinking about. Like they're just there right away. And so it's like almost like a shorthand. It's like you just hit the ground running. Whereas, here, let's say you might find people that are excited about film, but then you have to get them to where your headspace is at. Whereas if you're grabbing from the entire world as your pool, you can find people a little easier that way.
I don't quite agree. I don't really feel any need to get anybody where my headspace is at. But that's a daunting worry because I'm a big fan, even just in a historical sense, of like local and regional film. I think it's maybe the single most undervalued aspect of filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
And it used to be, you would we did an episode about it.
It's the time capsule aspect of the whole thing, yeah.
And there used to be a ton of just like movies that people in Mississippi made and just guys down in Florida made and I'm sure it still happens, but now that there's no drive-ins and they really don't play movies on TV anymore, it feels like you've lost a venue to just sort of uncover something that personal.
Yeah, you're not going to see it. It gets relegated to home movie status.
Yeah, I just hope that sort of global network doesn't cut off that local network. I hope like filmmakers in St. Louis don't stop finding each other and working together because they can find a filmmaker in Edinburgh who's a little closer to their perspective. Because we don't need any more films in LA, and we don't need any more films in Toronto. And to an extent,
well, that's for sure, yeah.
We don't need any more films in New York in the sense of Brooklyn and Manhattan. Though we definitely need Staten Island films, and we need Queens movies, and we need Bronx movies. But we need movies in Kentucky. We need movies in Missouri. We need Alaska movies. I'd love to see a Hawaii movie. And I hope people, because it's very hard, but it's not impossible, and it's more doable than it has ever been. So I don't know where to find them, but I hope that we still have those.
Preach.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good we have people like David Gordon Green too, who, went off and did a bunch of Hollywood stuff and then sort of came back to the local film roots that he started with, doing Prince Avalanche, which
Yeah.
I didn't really like, but I'm glad that he did it. And Joe, which is actually great.
Yeah. And to the extent that I could, I wanted to sort of be a part of that. We got one of our associate producer. He's from the Bronx, from the Arthur Avenue area, and he's lived there, I think, 50 years. And he was a big part of just sort of making sure that we were honest to the day-to-day spirit of that place, which is a very specific location. It has a character that you do not find anywhere else that I'm aware of, because, all places of interest have that sort of character that you don't find anywhere else. And it's almost your duty to the locations to be true to that. So we tried to keep it in that sort of that local spirit, that New York tradition, I guess you could call it.
I think all these people end up just sort of moving to the big cities, because that's kind of just what you're meant to do, but they don't ever move back, and they don't ever look back, unfortunately, when they don't realize that there is a lot that is uncovered and unknown about, Middle America or the South or Northeast.
I guess you could do it in the
West.
cities too. You just got to be honest to it, I mean, like, there really is a wealth of stories in New York that aren't being told. There's so many stories in Washington Heights that aren't being told, or like cast the net a little bit wider, and like Newark. I'm dying to see a great Newark movie. What an unreal location that is, and what an amazing history that is. And Queens, like Middle Village, is such a unique atmosphere to it that it gets crushed down when all you see from New York is shot on Court Street in Brooklyn or in like Madison Square Park. And it's easier than you think. It's super hard. We shot in every borough except Staten Island, and we also shot in Long Island, New Jersey. And it is so unbelievably hard to shoot where people are shooting. Like, it's so difficult to shoot in Brooklyn. People are so shitty about it, and it's just, there's no space. People will cut through your shots. People are loud. People will ruin your shots just for the hell of it. And it's just like aggressively anti-creation. And then you shoot somewhere like in the Bronx where people are a little more afraid of, but it was a dream shooting up there. And it was a dream shooting out in Queens too. We went out a ways into Queens, and it was just wonderful shooting there. Hoboken was wonderful to shoot at. You just gotta, I just really want filmmakers on my level to just sort of go for home, and to go for neighborhoods, and to not go for these locations that are just done to goddamn death.
Yeah.
We can bring back a lot of that 70s filmmaking as far as I'm concerned, the character-based, location-based movies instead of the grandiose dream plots of superheroes and mecha warriors and etc.
Yeah.
Or like just a good solid sci-fi that has like a real point about the life we already live in.
Well, Under the Skin would probably be a good example of something that went sci-fi but kept it kind of local.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That was a wonderful movie. And that was really, like, the technique of that is really cool, because you could do a big movie with Scarlett Johansson now, and you can shoot it the same way, like Cassavetes would have shot it.
Right.
You have the ability now. That fidelity is there. Like those shots in the car where it's a hidden camera, but if you're not told it is, it doesn't look like a hidden camera. It's a beautiful shot, and there's so much life in those frames. Yeah, I liked Under the Skin a lot.
So what'd you shoot it on?
We used a 5D Mark III with a fig rig, which
nice.
Fig rig was really cool.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of hardware.
For those who don't know what it is, it's basically like a steering wheel with a camera in the center, and you kind of hold it like you'd be holding a steering wheel, or you can hold it in, different variations of like 12 and 3 or 9 and 3 or however you want to do it.
Yeah, because the challenge of a DSLR is it's such a small camera and there's no real way to hold it without having that. If you want to do handheld, there's no way to hold it without having that really tremulous shake of a human hands, whereas opposed to say like a larger, like an old classic over-the-shoulder camera, when you're doing handheld stuff with that, it's not literally held in a hand, so it's a little steadier.
Right.
So with DSLR, you can see it a lot in sort of indie films. In the mumblecore stuff, you can see that those shots really just go all over the place. So the challenge is you have to change the center of gravity in those things. So the Fig Rig just makes it a larger apparatus.
Yeah.
So you have all the freedom that you do with a DSLR as opposed to a shoulder mount where you can move it in any dimension in space as much as you want, but it doesn't quiver.
Yeah, and you're not adding much weight. You're just adding sort of simulated weight.
It's a little heavier than I was expecting it, to be honest. Yeah, but not much.
The ones I've seen are usually like PVC, like DIY ones. So
yeah, we used the actual
nice
Fig one.
How heavy is it?
It's maybe 10 pounds.
Oh, okay. It's
not heavy, but it's a little more, because I was expecting something that was like almost weightless, but it's not. It's a big thing. It was invented by Mike Figgis, the director, who is sort of like one of the icons of digital filmmaking. He's been exploring that for forever. He did that movie Time Code in 2000, where he shot 4 feature-length shots following 4 characters and then superimposed them together in one frame, and then they kind of cross paths.
And he's probably best known for Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. He's got an interesting long career. But yeah, this was a great piece of equipment. So we used that. We had a shoulder mount and all sorts of fun toys. We used telephoto lenses as opposed to primes, because I wanted that sort of muddiness you get with them. I think the trouble with primes is everything you shoot on prime lenses ends up looking like upstream color. It's all very defined and very picturesque. So we used a bunch of telephotos to just sort of dirty up the look a little bit.
Was there much like distortion with the telephoto, or was it pretty straight?
If we cracked the thing out to all the way wide, it got a little
wonky,
bent in the middle. So we just didn't do that much unless we wanted that look.
And for sound, did you do like the Zoom H4n?
No, we had a pretty sizable sound kit with a preamp, and we had lavs on everybody and a boom. And
nice.
Yeah.
And you had a designated guy for that, right?
Yeah, really good guy. Franklin Vaughn. Very talented guy.
It's always hard finding good sound guys, man.
Yeah, this guy was good. Doesn't like planes. Doesn't like when planes come into the frame.
They never do. I wonder why.
But yeah, we emphasized sound as much as we could, because my line of thinking is, you can have sound so bad that it'll burst someone's eardrums, but you can't have a shot so bad it'll blow up somebody's eyeballs. And I feel like if you need just like a rule of thumb for what to prioritize, that is my suggested rule.
Yeah, sound is key, man.
You cannot argue with bad sound. That is a physiological problem.
It's like the uncanny valley visually, but for your ears almost. Like bad sound, it just grates on your soul.
Yeah, it can look beautiful, but if it has bad sound, I'm out. Exactly.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do to invest in it. Your body is just fighting it. It's like trying to watch the movie when you're standing in just a little bit of fire. Just like the tiniest bit.
That's why this podcast sounds so great, because we put a value on sound.
Well, when I stand next to the mic, it does.
Yeah, that always helps.
I don't like the mic.
Yeah, John D'Amico, not a big fan on wearing headphones, not a big fan on using the mic properly.
I think if anybody goes back to some of the older podcasts before it was cracked down, you can hear me sort of like disappear in and out of phrases because I'm moving my head a lot. I had to learn to not move my head.
He basically needs one of those headsets with a microphone on it, except he wouldn't wear it because he doesn't like the headphone aspect.
Yeah, there's no winning.
He's like a dog in a shower, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe a cat.
He needs just the mic part of the headset, just some piece of whatever.
Yeah, I
coming
should do
around
this
his
just
head.
8 Mile style. I should just hold the mic.
Yeah.
So you can drop it periodically.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We will be right back with some questions from the mailbag. See you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have listened this far into this episode, chances are you are a fan of Smug Film. And if you're a fan of Smug Film, you should become a member of Smug Film Club because you're missing out on some great stuff that you could be enjoying. Smug Film Club is our online mailing list. We're not going to email you when an episode goes up. We're not going to email you when an article goes up on the site. The only time we're going to email you is when we have a free gift for you. These gifts include bonus podcast episodes that will never be on iTunes or anywhere else. The only way to get them is by becoming a member of Smug Film Club for free. When you sign up, you will get our Best of 2014 podcast episode where we talk about all our favorite films of 2014. And you can only get that by being a Smug Film Club member. So go to smugfilm.com/club and put in your first name, last name, and email address. You'll get that episode right away. And you'll get all sorts of other fun stuff every month. Enjoy. And now back to the show. All right, Crystal asks, do you have a favorite video game movie adaptation? Why don't these ever seem to work, but book adaptations can? Is it the visual aspect of a video game that's too hard to translate? And are these too many questions? All right, so what are the good ones? Resident Evil was good. Pretty good, right? It was serviceable.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
James Cameron, huge fan of that one. Admitted that on Reddit not too long ago. All right, so what made that one work? Let's tackle that as an example.
Fast paced.
Yeah.
Unpretentious.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's an interesting one to look at because it's nothing like the game. The Romero version they wanted to do before they fired Romero was probably more like the game. It was more of a haunted house thing. But Anderson went for his skill sets, which was sort of like techno, action, fucking goofball fun. But it worked because there's a underlying structure to that story that you don't really have in most of the other ones. Like Doom was an okay movie and it pretty much looked a lot like Resident Evil and felt a lot like it. But the Doom video game was not a story-based piece of art. So it's like trying to adapt a song.
Yeah.
Resident Evil, it's like trying to adapt another movie. It really is. It's based around a clear story with a beginning, middle, and end that's told cinematically. But a lot of the great games aren't. Something like Mario, which people fight over. Some people say it was a really good movie. Some people say it was a bad movie.
I think it's a great movie for what it is. I just think that the problem people have getting around it is that they see the Mario characters and they expect something specific. I think if it had nothing to do with Mario, it would just be like this weird cult classic with like Dennis Hopper and shit.
Right, but here's the question. What do they expect specifically? Because there is nothing specific in those games except the sort of visual structure and a one-sentence IMDb plot summary, which is that he goes to the castle to save the princess. There's nothing else in there other than that to make a movie from.
Well, they were probably weaned on like the cartoon version too, because like there was the TV cartoon version of Super Mario, so they had that kind of expectation.
I didn't even know there was one of those.
You never watched that one?
No. But you know what I mean? Like a video game like that isn't telling a story the way that, say, a book or a movie tells a story, where you begin with characters, one specific conflict, and their inner and outer attempts to resolve it. You don't have any of that in 99% of video games.
But games are kind of moving towards that more.
Games have emotions and like they have a feeling, which I think actually, you know, it was back to Crystal's question of how come they can do books and they can't get it right for video games. They don't really get it right for books either, in my opinion. There's a couple of obviously great, adaptations, but for the most part, all of these movies that come out, and I was thinking of Harry Potter the other day, actually. I like the books a lot. The movies are terrible, except for the third movie, in which they made a real movie out of, and they threw away a lot of book detail and they changed some stuff, but they really kept the feeling of the book, in my opinion. And that's, I think, what happens to these movies. They get caught up and the plot and how much detail to put in, how much, every time, Mario jumps on this, he has to get a mushroom and the mushroom looks like this, and fuck that, just go right for how Mario makes you feel. And like, I think that's what people really kind of wanted from it.
And that's probably the one thing that was like off about it, is that the movie didn't capture the Mario feeling. It captured this really arbitrary feeling that was imposed, which was just this weird other movie.
And everything
just a
was
matter
there.
of art direction then.
Yeah.
I think
There's
so.
nothing in a game but art direction. I fundamentally disagree with you that there's not a lot of good movies based on books. I think that's completely off base, and if you sat down and really looked at the movies you liked,
they're all based on books.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like these movies that have come out more specifically that are like these direct sort of the book was already a bestseller. Gone Girl, Our Fault in the Stars,
the
Twilight.
sort of popular fiction adaptation.
and none of these are really good movies. They I mean, that's obviously arguable since they're getting good reviews and etc. But I mean,
not all of them, but they're well received by their audience. If not,
I agree with you on that point. I don't think they're very good, but I think what's really kind of interesting is to look at how many good movies are based on novellas and short stories. Because if you look at the structure of a movie, it is way more in line with a novella or a short story.
Exactly.
Where you have one conflict that has to get resolved and it has to just move and be done. And that's why you look at even Apocalypse Now, as loose as it is, it really does follow the rubric of Heart of Darkness, and it follows the beats of it very closely. And for example, I did a big thing studying Melville films based on Herman Melville, and there's never, ever been a good adaptation of Moby Dick, but there's been a flawless one of Billy Budd, which is very similar to Moby Dick, except it's like 90 pages. So you have this sort of like symbiosis in styles between those two art forms. And you have it to a lesser extent between the novel and the film, but a novel ultimately is bigger and more interiorized than a film could be. But a video game tells a story in almost no way similar, except on the barest, most facile, it has moving images terms than a movie.
right. It's all about the art direction connection to your emotions, and then translating that same vibe on the screen, and then basically plugging in whatever else you need to, because
that's why there are so many like fan-made paintings and comic book versions of video games that people love, because that sort of frozen still, like an evocative image that you can sort of lose yourself in of a painting or a drawing or a fucking comic book is much more in line with what a video game, when they're good anyway, tries to do.
Sort of the thing, though, is that I think video games on their own, the best video game movies have been these sort of horror game movies, like Resident Evil. I like Silent Hill a lot, even though it's dopey. It's completely a dumb movie, but
that's probably on the better side
and
of video game movies.
It included all the parts that they had a couple of cameos by the creepy characters, and then it had that kind of feeling with the mist, that sort of thing. But they didn't try too hard for plots. Like I can't imagine. I mean, there have been like Final Fantasy movies, and I think they're terrible. But because everyone's trying so hard to cram all that detail of these like, sprawling 12-hour games or however long they are, and it's like novels, that I think that what makes the novella movies so good is that it's more compact, and you also it's about a feeling. It's not about the plot. It's not about the characters. You can throw all that crap, out for the most part. The short story is trying to just give you either like one picture in time, or it's trying to just deliver a message real quick and emotionally. And I think that's really what makes a great movie too,
And this is sort of like, I completely agree. And this is sort of like a crisis in like, to an extent that it exists, the video game community. Like I'll see all these things online where people are like bugging out because all these games, a ton of games now have like 5-hour cutscenes or whatever. And they're really trying to specifically become and are graded on their capacity to be cinematic. But like the more they try to be movies, the shittier they are as games, at least in my not really that interested in them estimation of them. Like the games that work best and the ones that trickle down to what I hear about are the ones that are lost in this sort of like primal, like image-based, moment-based, movement-based kind of storytelling as opposed to a purely narrative-based cinematic approach. And it's a shame that they're almost throwing that ability and that virtue of theirs aside to be more like a medium that they are nothing like.
Yeah, I mean, when I pick up a game, I rarely play video games, but when I pick up a game, it's a game that I can just get right into and start playing, whether it be like me playing Dr. Mario on NES and just you turn it on and you're in it and you're just playing something very simple, or like I bought Grand Theft Auto 5 and I don't think I did more than maybe 1 or 2 missions. I just enjoyed it as a taxi driving simulation. I was just driving around making money.
And making
in an honest way,
making
and
your
fun.
Story out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I do the same thing. I'll get rid of the missions, and then as I play it, I just sort of the character and the story isn't something that's imposed on me. It's something that I import into that world.
Yeah,
which is something that you get in like paintings and maybe in a more abstract way in music, but you can't do that in the novel, the written word in general, or film. It can't be done. So it's the one thing that the game medium has over everything else, and they seem to be
they don't value it so highly anymore, I guess.
Maybe they just don't have the critical underpinning to value it.
Right.
All the terms that they use to praise or damn video games are imported from the world of film.
Right.
They're all about camera and
visuals, sound, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and scenes. They talk about cut scenes and all this stuff. They should just throw all that shit away and start over with their own lexicon and see where it takes them.
There are a lot of indie games that are coming out that I also like, I used to be way more into it than I am now, but I hear about it, from friends and etc. And it sounds like that sort of thing does exist.
Yeah.
It's just being like repressed for whatever reason, or it's like just not, I guess like the sort of the big magazines don't pick it up the same way like an indie movie doesn't get picked up by, wide distribution.
Except it seems more, the sort of dividing line is greater with games. It seems like it's like the AAA stuff and then all the rest, all the sort of homegrown versions of
It's not too far from the state of film right now, though.
Yeah.
You get the Avengers and then you pray to God Skeleton Twins comes to your town. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess it is pretty much the same. Well, then it sucks. Anyway you slice it.
Conclusion, it sucks.
Conclusion, Resident Evil's good.
Yeah. Before we move on, are there any other ones that we're missing besides Resident Evil?
I feel like there's so many more and I can't remember them. Silent Hill. I like Silent Hill.
I like
House of the Dead 2 was pretty sweet. I know that's a weird sentence that sentence has never been put together before, but House of the Dead 2, which I think was either a Sci-Fi Pictures original or is just something that they picked up and ran with.
What'd you like about it?
It's it's what would have been the third movie on a drive-in bill in the 70s. It's probably the shoot was like 10 days.
Right.
Nobody is going into this movie, including the crew, with any pressure to really, make it something special. So it's like weirdly casual. And it's about it's about like zombies on a college campus and this like crew that comes in to kill them. But it's almost like a hangout movie because it's so low stress and it's like goofy.
I gotta check that one out.
It's it's a good one to put on in the background,
Yeah, I like the Mortal Kombats, the 1 and 2. I think they're terrible in this exuberant way that makes them a better adaptation than something if you had taken it so seriously. I think it's almost to a movie's benefit to not be a great movie if it's going to be a video game adaptation because it's just it's a different enjoyment factor.
I would love to see a movie version of Zork. Which I think has so much potential.
All those adventure games, all those old...
What is Zork?
It was like a text adventure, yeah.
That's cool.
It was good. And it was funny. And they had so many different versions of it as a game. And it did get a little more cinematic eventually. And it was always just funny. I mean, they can throw out the difficulty and head banging into a wall aspect of it in the movie. But.
Well, there was a great Indiana Jones computer game, Fate of Atlantis, which had
Oh, that
such-
was cool.
It had such a better story than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And it's such a shame that that never became a movie, because it was about like him finding like the lost city of Atlantis and everything. And it was just like for like a video game, it was a very cinematic, well thought out, plausible other Indiana Jones adventure.
See, you're doing exactly what I was saying. You're describing it in terms that you would describe a movie.
But it was a great
That's
game
really
too.
interesting.
It was a great game too.
That's really interesting.
That was a lot of fun.
I liked TIE Fighter and X-Wing, and they were those ones where you you got a setting and you had the sort of background in your head of all the Star Wars stuff, but the story of your guy came, as you moved through it.
Right.
And I made my case in an article why there's room to make a great Doom movie if you do it great.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's pretty much all art direction.
Yeah.
Kind of lay it out. They just kind of dropped the ball in that department.
Yeah. If anybody missed it, I wrote an article some months ago about the Doom film with The Rock, and which was like pretty sweet. But if you look at it, it's very boring looking. It looks like shitty version of Event Horizon. It's just, silver walls and silver floors and silver doors. And if you look at Doom the game, I mean, that is an insane world they built. There's like you'll walk into these rooms that are like wallpapered with human flesh and just the weirdest, like the way to open doors is you press these buttons that look like skulls. And there's just all this great techno devil imagery in them. If you're going to adapt it, which I heard they want to do again.
And stuff that
You gotta
really
go
lends
for it.
itself to like practical effects too. Stuff that's very tactile, like a door or a knob, that sort of thing that could really just elevate it.
Yeah. I'd love to see like Clive Barker do Doom.
Yeah. All right. So next question is, what duty, if any, do sequels and remakes owe to the original film? And that question's from Brad.
I don't think a remake really owes anything to the original film. That's why you want to see something different. I mean, though, I guess remakes do get crap for not being like the original, but better. But I would rather see something just different. It's like a cover of a song. I want to hear something fresh. I want a fresh take on it. You want to keep maybe some, that original melody, that original like feeling that you get from the song. Or if they could take it show you that same exact, plot, dialogue, characters, and make you feel a totally different way. That's really interesting to me.
Well, it's like the improv thing of yes and. I think there needs to be like sort of a yes and quality, whether you're doing a sequel or a remake, where it's like, yes, all of this, but we can also take this other added level to it or this other added direction,
For sequels, I agree. For a sequel, I want to see everything that I loved from the first one, but in a different
I guess
place.
more for sequels than remakes.
You know what's interesting though about sequels? One of my favorite sequels, and I think Cody, this might be one of yours too. Son of Kong. I think we've talked about Son of Kong.
It's not a movie I would say that I think is a great movie, but it's one of the most, I would say the most interesting example of a sequel in film
Because
history.
what they do is, you know how every sequel, the whole premise of the sequel is you do the first one but bigger? Son of Kong does the first one but smaller. And then they essentially remade it as Mighty Joe Young a few years later, and then that does the same
which
thing
is an
again.
incredible movie.
Oh, Mighty Joe Young is like a masterpiece. And it does the same thing. It just takes the King Kong story and just makes it smaller again. So, I mean, literally the ape shrinks in each movie, but also, like the confines of the story get smaller. You don't go to back and forth between Skull Island and New York. You just sort of lock into one location, and the number of characters sort of whittles down, and the human story, especially Mighty Joe Young, the human story starts to pick up because Mighty Joe Young has better actors than either of the Kong movies.
As you're explaining Son of Kong, it's almost like if you were doing a video game of King Kong, like a video game sequel to King Kong, and you had to scale it down a lot. It has this weird aspect halfway into the film where it becomes this very linear adventure of like, oh, you walk over here and then you encounter this, and then you walk further and then you encounter this, and it's very linear. And so Son of Kong is almost like the video game version of King Kong.
Yeah. And Mighty Joe Young then becomes like the classic melodrama version.
Yeah.
It's the one where they invest in actors and they give it a human story that really actually works.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with both of you. And that's sort of my rule for sequels or remakes. They have to have, I think their only duty is they have to have some reason for being. They have to show you something in a way that it wasn't shown the first time. You know, like everybody loves The Thing, the Carpenter one, which is a very good movie. I prefer the original. I prefer the 51 one. But the brilliant thing about the remake of The Thing is that it takes the skeleton of the first movie and of the short story it's based on, and it just starts to like it like daydreams, you know, like the whole thing is almost like, well, what if this went, you know, what if they went right here instead of left, you know, just this like alternate approach to that story.
I am getting sick of movie sequels and these trilogies that treat movies more like television shows than like movies. Like as you said, I want something to elevate or to express in a different way that the first one didn't, but still keep like something forward. I don't want just episode 2.
Yeah, it's like they stretch out the drama over like a way long period of time, like they do
And
with
it's
the
one
Harry Potter movies and everything.
Yeah, or the Hobbit movies, which that was a 300-page children's book,
right?
That they've turned into 12 hours of cinema. That's insane. You could read the book probably a couple times in the amount of time it takes to watch those films.
I mean, that's just bizarre. That was so like blatantly dishonest. I mean, it
was insulting.
It's like really, it had to be another 3-film thing with extended editions and everything else and all that.
And considering they did Lord of the Rings and all of those books being what, like at least 300 pages or more and one movie. And I liked those movies, and even the extended cuts I thought were good, and I wanted to watch them. But yeah, I agree. The Hobbit, like that's exactly like, if I wanted to watch it on TV, I'd watch it on TV. And I don't have a problem with serial television, but when I'm in a movie, that I do have certain expectations, and I don't know. It's just like I don't like going every year to go back to the same thing I watched a year ago, like The Hobbit. You know, like I want to finish it, fucking end it. It's great, like it has good aspects to it, but like don't stretch it out for 3 years and keep it the same note.
There's just not that much content in that story to go that far. It's not there. So it's like being in a waiting room for 6 years until the third movie finally comes out.
Yeah, it's like the tantric sex of film, I guess.
Well, the way I always put it is, if the generation that was inspired by Star Wars made Star Wars, they would have saved the Death Star for the third movie.
Yep.
And there never would have been a third movie because the first movie wouldn't have had an ending.
Yep, and it would have tanked.
Yeah. So, I mean, sequels and all that, you can't make a film hoping to make a sequel because you hold back, you hold your punches. You have to clear the slate at the end of every film, you know. Even some of the earlier superhero movies do it. The first Iron Man was really good about it. I mean, that movie burnt all its bridges by the end of that movie. It threw every punch it had.
It seems like they felt so lucky to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a character that people really cared about in the way that they care about like Batman or Superman. And Robert Downey Jr. at the time wasn't, you know, a hugely popular choice for the character, and Jon Favreau, not a hugely popular choice for a director. So everybody working on it was just like, all right, we have this awesome chance to do something really interesting and weird.
Yeah. And the ending where he has that press conference and he says, "I'm Iron Man." I mean, it's an ending to a movie.
Exactly.
It concludes the arc that they built into him in that film. And then it also just happened to be one that you could build on. But if you cut out the fucking Nick Fury shit at the very end, that's a complete beginning, middle, end story.
Yeah.
And they did that, and they were still able to build all the Marvel skyscraper cinema on top of it, which means that there's no excuse for anybody to hold back.
Yeah.
You know, if you could end Iron Man that way and still make those sequels, if you could end the first Star Wars with blowing up the Death Star and still make 2 more, there's no excuse to hold back in any first film.
Then you're instantly more curious about like, wait a second, they're making another one? Because you feel like, all right, I'm going to be able to go on this fresh new roller coaster. Like, I feel like I already went on this complete roller coaster. Now this one is going to have an ending that's as succinct as the other one. That's what you're hoping for when you hear about a sequel to something that ends so well.
Well, more to the point,
a lot of times it doesn't happen that way, but that's where your brain goes to because you remember the first one as such a complete story.
It forces the filmmaker to raise the stakes of the next one as well. You know,
it's like a kick in the ass. It challenges you.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if all these movies that end with this like wink nod that, oh, there's going to be a sequel, it's also like, going on a first date and being like, hey, nice to meet you. My name's Jenna and can't wait to, see you tomorrow. This date's going to go great. Like who knows?
Yeah, it's presumptuous.
It's super presumptuous. And it also, it gives them a chance to be lazy. They think, oh, everyone's going to fucking love it anyhow. Let's just do whatever. And then we'll do another one.
The Ghostbusters 2 thing where they just remade the first movie as a sequel.
Right.
Which is a weird thing. I feel like there's a very sharp line between sequels and remakes, and I wonder if sometimes it isn't real. Because if you look at the plot of Ghostbusters 2, that's pretty much a remake.
Right.
And it doesn't follow the ending of Ghostbusters 1 where they're successes at all. So it's not a contiguous story. It's a separate story with the same characters again.
Well, that's the corner you write yourself into when you end on the success. Then
they
lot
didn't
of
write
times,
themselves into any corner. They just didn't have the balls to follow through
but
with the premise they
pushing
had.
your characters back like down the stairs.
Yeah.
It's a problem you run into. Like if it's a happy ending and everything's great, then why should there even be a sequel? So then you have to kick them down again and have them.
Well, they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it with Ghostbusters. I mean, they had a world where ghosts were trying to take over the world, and they had now a team of 4 people who were supposed to fight it.
I'm saying that it's a mistake. It's a problem that.
It's weird cowardice. And then what happens is you have sequels that become remakes for no reason. Whereas I would rather have remakes and sequels as separate entities with their own kind of reason for being,
I think horror is kind of, you get like a lot of little happy accidents with sequels with horror. Like I love what they did with Halloween 3. I still think it was such a great idea to break from the monotony of what Halloween unfortunately then became. And I love the 4th Nightmare on Elm Street movie. That one I really love. And I like that with horror, a lot of the times it's things aren't as nailed down as, a director being carried over. It's not like with Don Coscarelli doing all the phantasms. Usually it's like, all right, the second one's another guy, third one's another guy, fourth one's another guy. So there's all these opportunities for something interesting to happen. People get bogged down with like there's going to be another Jason or another Freddy or whatever, but it's not the same thing over and over again.
I was just talking about this, about some of those slasher sequels that are like one of the most despised set of films in the world. Some of them are really cool. Yep. Like Friday the 13th 2 is so good. Way better than 1, way better than any of the other ones. It's just this weirdly, like, it's a different director, and it's just this weirdly talented set of people. It has the best actress and the best director, and it just, like, it shouldn't exist as a movie, but it really is very good. And 6 is really funny, and then, like, some of the later ones, like Return of the Living Dead 3 is such a good movie. And there's these weird, like, peaks in these long-running series that, are kind of fascinating.
Well, Leprechaun Back to the Hood, not the first Leprechaun in the Hood. That's the first Leprechaun movie since the first one that really nails something interesting where you're like, all right, this is a story. This is about a leprechaun. I understand why the leprechaun's like this. I understand why these people are like that. All the other ones, they're just total fucking messes. I mean, Leprechaun 4 in space is great just in its own little vibe. But the first Leprechaun movie and the last Leprechaun movie before they did that fucking reboot that completely changed the idea of a leprechaun into like this fucking like growling dog essentially, which is a total mistake. But those 2 movies that bookend the entire series essentially, those are the ones that really got it right. And they were, the case of completely different people working on both and finding the thing about them that works. And you wouldn't like in your right mind assume that Leprechaun Back to the Hood is going to be the succinct great one in the series. But that's why it's so much fun to go through a horror series because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, you wouldn't think Psycho 2 is good. And Psycho 2 is so good. You wouldn't think Exorcist 3 is good. And Exorcist 3 is like, there are moments in that movie that are among the best horror in probably the entire scope of the 1990s. Exorcist 3 is really stunning. And that's what I really like about the Alien series. You have... you almost take it for granted because they're so AAA, all those movies, but you have these 4 up-and-coming filmmakers who are figuring out what stories they want to tell through through those two characters, Ripley
It almost
and the
becomes
aliens.
an anthology film.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
almost do.
It's a giant version of just one of those
Yeah.
anthology horror films.
And like any anthology film, some of them are better than others.
Yeah,
And one
and
of
that's
them is a
okay.
total fucking bust.
Yeah, and that's all right.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, there are other ones, you know? You don't get so bogged down and like, oh, it's this one, you know? It's all a part of a thing. It's fun to watch movies that aren't great sometimes. It's fun to watch movies that drop the ball, sequels that drop the ball. Like I love Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's a terrible movie, but it fails in such a weird, specific
That's the only
way.
one of that series that I have any interest in. I don't like any of those movies, but that is just one of the weirdest
It's so
making
bizarre.
ofs.
Yeah. It's fascinating. This next question is from Greg Deliso, our boy. He asks, why does anybody like the Rob Zombie Halloweens? And this kind of goes right into what we were talking about. I watched the first 5-10 minutes of his first one and I wasn't into it, but I hear Halloween 2 is great. I know you like both of them, right?
Yeah, I like both of them a lot. They're very sloppy, and Halloween 2 in particular. Halloween 2, I think, with maybe an extra month of script work on that movie and some slightly different casting, I think Halloween 2 could have been one of the best horror movies ever made. It's not that, but as it stands, it's a very good movie with a few moments that are just stunning. And I really like the Halloween movies for the reasons that a lot of Halloween fans don't, which is that they throw a lot away and they remold it all. Because the whole idea, the first one starts with like 20 minutes of Michael Myers as a kid.
Yeah, that's what really just kicked me away from it. You know?
Well, I love that because, you know, I don't need another fucking movie about that Michael Myers. They're out there. There's enough of them.
Oh, there's more than enough.
So what I'm really interested in is seeing a filmmaker who grew up on Michael Myers make his Michael Myers movie, and it's very different. It's really half Rob Zombie and half Rob Zombie's influences. So it's this weird sort of like personal version of Halloween, in the same one I guess that Carpenter's was. You know, it really feels like, you know, a singular film from one filmmaker.
He is a very personal director.
Yeah.
He's
And if you don't like his vision, I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do.
That's
And I
how I-
sympathize with that.
that's how I felt with all of his movies except for Lords of Salem, which I fucking adore, which is in my mind the Spring Breakers of fucking horror movies. I love that fucking
Devil's
movie.
Rejects is the Spring Breakers of horror movies.
I don't like Devil's Rejects. I couldn't get into that one.
But anyway, well, Halloween though, he revises those characters from the beginning, so Loomis becomes a piece of shit. And it's cool because you can watch this guy who watched, you know, Halloween and Halloween 2 when he was a kid, and there's that part in Halloween 2 where Loomis accidentally runs over that kid dressed as Michael Myers and doesn't even give a shit about it. And you can see like the wheels turning in Rob Zombie's head
Right. So
as he
that,
imagines this new,
that went into that pot.
yeah, this, you know, new conception of an old character.
Have you seen any of the Halloween movies, Jenna?
Nope.
Not even the originals, right?
No.
I feel like you would like the first one.
Everybody likes the first Halloween.
I probably
don't-
would.
I'm not like a big fan of it, but it's something that's kind of difficult not to find something in it that you like, you know?
I've missed a lot of these horror movies just because I never saw them as a kid because they scared the shit out of me. And so, like, I've seen a lot of them later in life, like Alien, I saw very recently.
You're going to be surprised by how many of them aren't that scary when you watch them now. You know?
That's kind of.
You're gonna be like, these
what
are just
I'm
movies.
expecting.
They always got reputations that they didn't deserve. I mean, Halloween isn't really, it's a spook show more than it's, you know, like a relentless horror beatdown. The
Yeah,
way
it's
like
about the
Texas
vibe.
Chainsaw is still terrifying. And it was always gonna be, but Halloween isn't like that. Halloween's sort of a classic slow burn M.R. James kind of a ghost story, which is a whole different world. And it's also what frustrates me a little bit about Halloween and about Rocky is that The Shining is always remembered as the great text on how to do Steadicam, but Halloween and Rocky both came first. And the Steadicam in Rocky and the Steadicam in fucking Halloween is incredible.
And
Some
what's
of those
more
shots.
imitated than the Steadicam in Rocky?
You know what's more imitated? The Steadicam in the beginning of Halloween. That opening sequence.
Probably, yeah.
That traveling through the whole house murder thing. I mean, that was a textbook that, you know, nobody had seen anything like that before.
And the Rocky thing you see in commercials all the time.
Yeah.
Pretty much you turn on the TV any time of day, you're going to see something from Rocky in that Steadicam usage.
And I love The Shining to death. And I mean, I just sat here and spoke about how much I love Kubrick for like 20 minutes, but The Shining is not the ground zero for great Steadicam that people say it is. I would say Halloween is, or Rocky.
Yeah.
But Rob Zombie's Halloween's, the second one has this moment near the beginning where it doesn't try to outdo any of the other Halloween movies, but it in its own way finds this really staggering horror scene. And it's horror not because things are jumping out, but it's horror in this very true way where what's going on is horrible. And I think that's really hard for a slasher movie to do. Halloween 2 is really interesting movie to me because it's Michael Myers doesn't show up really for like an hour and a half. And most of the movie is about this girl who survived, these two girls who survived the attacks of the first movie, trying to get over their like psychological damage from that. So you see these scenes, where they're at these parties and they're like wilding out and they're, yelling at each other and they're with their psychiatrist and everything. And it's a movie about these people trying to get past grief.
I'll have to check that one out.
And then at the end, through that whole thing, Michael Myers, you see him in these short bits coming to town, and it's like he's a fucking hurricane rolling in. You get that real like prodigal return feel.
Yeah, I got to see that one.
Yeah, like it's not perfect. I mean, there's some basic stuff that's sort of sloppy in it, but when it's good, it's a very good film.
All right, so if we're gonna steer Jenna into a specific direction, because you said you haven't seen too many horror movies. What would we put on her plate first? You think?
Oh yeah, let me know.
The Haunting, the original.
I've seen The Haunting of Hill House. Is that the same thing or is that different?
Well, The Haunting of Hill House is the book. Did you see the 60s movie or the movie with Liam Neeson? The movie is just called The Haunting.
My mother always talks about the 60s movie and how horrifying it was. And then I think
That's
I
The
did see
Haunting.
the remake.
Yeah, the remake's awful. Awful.
I remember
film.
it being bad.
I think that movie's a big part of why people instinctively hate remakes. That one in 99 really just didn't work. But the original, I think, is, in a lot of ways, perfect horror film. Perfect film.
I liked the remake.
Yeah.
I liked Owen Wilson with his little part in the fireplace and all that.
Did you see the original?
Yeah, but I liked the remake.
I'm glad somebody does. What do you think of the original?
Well, let me talk about the remake. The remake is, I think the thing that I liked about the remake was that it was this weird time with CGI ghost stuff where they were figuring it out. And in each scene where they did that CGI ghost stuff, they were just trying something different to see what fucking stuck. And I like that part. And I like the weird statue stuff that they did.
And it took until Paranormal before anybody figured out that it just doesn't work. And the best way to go is just not do it.
Exactly.
That's the genius of Paranormal Activity. They're like, just fucking forget it.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the remake.
I'm glad somebody does.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the guy. I'll be signing autographs. So Haunting for Jenna. And then, but if we're going to go 70s, 80s, do you think she should start with Halloween? Should we start with Friday the 13th or?
Halloween is just so much better than Friday or any of the Nightmare movies.
I'm just afraid it'll spoil her for watching the other ones.
You know where I would start with the 70s stuff? Dawn of the Dead.
It's a weird place to start, though.
It's the best of all of them. It's all of the attributes of them. And you see if you put Halloween and Dawn of the Dead together and you have the sort of like the margins of what you could do with great horror.
Mm-hmm.
You have this very funny and very grim and very violent and very sprawling satire. And then you have this very focused, serious, bloodless, quiet, two-person stalking film.
Yeah, I'd say watch those two, like not back to back necessarily, but in the same kind of span of time, I guess. That's a good start off.
Okay.
78, both of them. That was a great year for horror. Same year as the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that. I see the sci-fi ones. I haven't seen the horror.
Did you ever see the Blob remake?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great movie. That's probably one of the best horror remakes.
Frank Darabont wrote it.
Yeah.
That was...
some of the best practical effects I've ever seen in a film.
That, I think, is one of Darabont's high points.
Oh, yeah. So put that one down, too, actually, the Blob remake. Because that's a great 80s horror practical effects masterpiece. Was it 80s or was it like early 90s?
88, I think.
Yeah, it was like that right at that cusp.
There's a 50s, maybe early 60s, I think 58 or 59 Mexican film called Kaltiki the Immortal Monster. That's a Blob knockoff.
Oh, nice.
And that movie is fucking awesome.
I gotta check that
That's
out.
a great one. They find this thing. It's like a monster that, like, I think I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember there was some reference to the Mayans like locking it up. So they find it in a cave and it like dissolves people's skins, and it's just a blob monster.
Nice.
There's a whole
I'm
substrata. There's a whole substrata of knockoffs of the 50s monster movies that are usually really worth watching. Like there's a knockoff of a creature from the Black Lagoon called Monster of Piedras Blancas. That's just awesome. I love that movie. It's about a monster who lives in a lighthouse, and
that might be a good list for Smug Film.
Yeah, I'd put it together. The lighthouse keeper feeds him a bucket of fish heads every day to not attack the town, and he just like roams this foggy beach.
Nice. All right, I think that about wraps it up for today. Cody Clark, that's John D'Amico right over there. That's Jenna Ipcar looking at her. She's looking. All right, now she's looking back. All right. Any final words, final thoughts for everybody? Jenna, final thoughts.
Talking about, I guess, sort of not really a horror movie, but a little bit, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao. That's a great movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah,
Tony Randall.
I don't think I have, yeah.
it's a good
I'll
one.
lend it to you because I think you'd love it. Tony Randall plays all of the parts. It's about a traveling circus. It's good. It's
That
like
sounds awesome.
it's sort of this kind of a moral movie, you know, like each room has a different, you know, theme and etc. And he plays all of them, and it's a little creepy, but in a good way. And like it's actually a great movie. And considering Tony Randall's playing a Chinese sorcerer, surprisingly not racist movie.
That's impressive.
It's, you know, like it's a little bit. It is, but he always you know, keeps his dignity
It's like the
about
Charlie Chan movies. Some of them you're watching, you're like, I'm surprised you're not more racist.
All right, so John D'Amico, final thoughts, final words for the
Yeah, keep an eye on Green Brothers. Should be coming out sometime 2015.
Definitely 2015, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's awesome then.
You gonna
And-
let us know? You gonna
Yeah,
keep
you
us
gotta
updated?
keep us abreast.
I'm absolutely not.
This is the last we'll speak on this,
Yeah.
right?
No, we'll I'll update you as it goes.
All right, see you guys. Everybody say bye.
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 Bye.